Canadian families are under less advantage under this government by at least between $1,151 a year to some other families to $860 a year. So these are the records, not what the other member is saying and what the government is suggesting.
So true.
There will be a minute and a half remaining in questions and comments following the speech of the Honourable Member for Edmonton Manning. Following question period. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The Honourable Member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to Jacob Schwartz, who died last week in Toronto. Jakey was born in 1997 and diagnosed with Canavan disease, which left him unable to walk, talk, eat, see, or speak. With the cards stacked against them, the Schwartz family decided to make every moment count, which they did for 21 years. While providing round-the-clock care, his mum Ellen formed the charity Jacob's Ladder, raising over $3 million for research into Canavan disease. Dad Jeff and siblings Bevy and Ben were all part of the indomitable team that always made sure Jakey came first. Mr. Speaker, I want to close with lines from I Rise Above, a song written for Jake to celebrate his 20th birthday. No need to fix me. I am my own perfect soul. There's a reason I am here. I am love. I rise above. Mr. Speaker, the Schwartz family have shown us the true meaning of love and touched our lives. May Jacob's memory forever be a blessing.
Bravo. The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, last Thursday, former Member of Parliament for Guelph Wellington, Dr. William Weingard, passed away at the age of 94. He was part of what many call the greatest generation. He grew up during the Great Depression, was a Second World War veteran, and served as the youngest officer in the history of the Royal Canadian Navy. He came back from the war, became an engineering professor, and eventually the president of the University of Guelph. He was then elected to this very House of Commons and served as Minister for Science in the government of Brian Mulroney. Bill was an officer of the Order of Canada, a recognition of his contributions to the City of Guelph, to the County of Wellington, and to Canada. He was a teacher and a leader to many and a mentor to me, and for that I will be forever grateful. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members of this House to join me in paying tribute to this great Canadian.
Here.
The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt.
I'm a proud Northerner. Our government has listened and took action and announced the launch of a rural immigration pilot project to meet the labour market gaps vocalized by small business owners.
This gives hope to businesses and construction associations who expressed their inability to find employees. I'd like to thank Minister Hussein and the Prime Minister to have heard our concerns. The pilot project will have a deep and positive impact and will respond to the various needs of the labour market.
Thank you to the local Chamber of Commerce's. Thank you to the building trades who have pushed so hard for this project. This employer and community-driven initiative will improve the economic, social, democratic vitality of Nickel Belt and Northern Ontario. Rural matters. Merci, Miigwech.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, in January, my team and I met with citizens in Longueuil-Saint-Hubert to listen to their concerns. Environment, poverty, culture dominated the discussions. But a singular voice was missing, that of Claude Bouchard. Claude died of cancer on January 16, and that is an immense loss for Longueuil. He was a black belt and taught karate, and he was very present socially and an activist. He was an ambassador for social goodwill. President of the NDP Association of Longueuil, Claude gave of himself unstintingly. He was able to talk to all levels of government and make them understand the facts on the ground in Longueuil. On behalf of all citizens in Longueuil-Saint-Hubert, I offer my sincere sympathies to France Mathieu Simon and all his loved ones. Thank you, Claude.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise today on the eve of the Lunar New Year in the House of Commons to welcome the Year of the Pig, an animal that symbolizes the prosperity and good fortune that can be built with hard work and a little bit of luck. Across our community in Richmond Hill, Canadians of Asian Pacific heritage will ring in the New Year tonight, and I'll join them in their celebration at Times Square for the official countdown. I'm pleased to have been able to partner with Times Square for this celebration and look forward to spending time with Chinese Canadian community in Richmond Hill tomorrow at the Lianglong Chamber of Commerce, where I can share my first-hand experiencing visiting China this January, where I had the opportunity to learn about the strong trade and economic, education and cultural linkages between both of our countries. As families bringing generations to the table for their celebratory dinner, I wish every and each one of them Sin Lin Kuai Lo, Gong Hei Fa Choi, Gong Si Fa Chai, Merci, Xie Xie.
The honourable member for Calgary Signal Hill.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians will soon be presented with a new budget, and for the fourth consecutive year, this government will be running a substantial deficit. Since coming to office in 2015, this government has added almost $60 billion to the debt. The debt now stands at 2/3 of $1 trillion. Our annual interest payments are $26 billion annually, and that exceeds all of our military spending. Worse yet, these interest payments do not reduce the overall debt and continue to increase our debt each year. Huge new spending, additional taxes, larger deficits. None of this was promised in the last election, Mr. Speaker, and the current government will be seeking a new mandate soon, and I urge all Canadians to think about those broken promises and elect a strong Conservative government.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today we launch Canadian School Counselling Week, highlighting the tremendous impact of school counsellors on the academic achievement and career development of students. Across the country, Canadians recognize the unique contribution school counsellors play in supporting student success. School counselors are mental health professionals who support the personal, social, educational, and career developments of students and make positive contributions to the mental health and well-being of all Canadians. On a daily basis, school counselors are actively engaged in helping students examine their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents. School counselors support families and work with teachers and other educators to provide an educational system where students can appreciate their potential and set realistic and healthy aspirations for the future. During Canadian School Counselling Week, let us take an opportunity to thank school counselors for their important role that they play in schools in Winnipeg Centre, Manitoba, and across Canada. Tapoyaki Kitwam, hi hi.
Honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Gong Hei Pat Choi, Mr. Speaker. 2019 is not only the Year of the Pig, but it is also the 50th anniversary of the Sign Lock Society of Calgary. It is my honor to congratulate them on 50 years of making real change in our community. Their initiatives include Sign Lock Park, establishing a scout troop, and hosting events and more. True to its translated name, Happiness Through Good Works, Sign Lock is committed to promoting and preserving Chinese Canadian heritage. As long as there has been a Calgary, there has been a Chinese community. Together, we continue to create a better place for everyone to live, work, and play. Special recognition to Raymond Lee, Sign Lock's first president. As a kid, I delivered the Calgary Herald, Mr. Lee. He is a very kind man. And the same can be said of John Dong, who was named president last fall. Here's to another 50 years of Sign Lock Calgary.
Honourable member for Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, the carbon tax cover-up continues. For most Canadians, life is becoming more expensive.
It does.
They just can't get ahead. Yet for the Prime Minister, life has always been lived on Easy Street. He's never had to worry about making ends meet because, of course, he's inherited a multi-million-dollar trust fund. While he gets to vacation on Billionaire Island, ordinary Canadian families are being forced to pay for his carbon tax that will make it much more difficult for them to take their own vacations. And now we find out from the government's own documents that after the next election, the carbon tax will be 50 times higher than it is today. Whoa. That's $5,000 more in taxes for every Canadian family each year. Mr. Speaker, yes, the carbon tax cover-up continues, and who's going to pay the price? Families across Canada who are already struggling to make ends meet. Shame on the Prime Minister and shame on this Liberal government.
Honourable member for Whitby.
I'd like to talk about our magnificent West Block. People have worked at modernizing this building, and it's clear that their work is extraordinary. We appreciate their work and devotion.
I'm reminded that while we remain rooted in both a proud and painful history, we as parliamentarians are boundless in our capacity to create positive change for Canadians. It takes a team of world-class artists to create an environment that invokes in each of us a tremendous sense of responsibility and duty, while at the same time inspiring us to push boundaries, redefine the status quo, and amplify the voices of those most marginalized in our communities. Thank you to all involved in this project. It is truly an honor to continue to serve the people of Whitby in this majestic place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Oakville.
Mr. Speaker, each year on February the 4th, Canadians come together to recognize World Cancer Day, an international day of awareness about cancer. Take a moment to look around this chamber. Imagine half of us hearing the words, "You have cancer." On any given day, 565 Canadians will hear those words. 1 in 2 Canadians are expected to be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. The magnitude of this is staggering on individuals and on their families. We need to help those facing cancer live their lives more fully and see life beyond the diagnosis. To do this, we must expand access to credible cancer information and ensure support services like those offered by the Canadian Cancer Society are available from coast to coast to coast, so nobody faces cancer alone. I would like to thank Lynn Hudson and all her colleagues at the Canadian Cancer Society for everything they do to support Canadians in the fight to eradicate cancer and enhance the quality of life of people living with cancer. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, time after time, my colleagues and I have stood in this place and asked the Prime Minister how on earth he expects the financial situation of Canadians to improve when Liberal actions are causing the cost of everything to go up. The government likes to brag about their record, but for the constituents in Edmonton West and across Alberta, the only record we see is record high unemployment and record fleeing of investment. It's no surprise this government has trouble understanding basic economics. When asked about the management of his own finances, the Prime Minister said, "I no longer have dealings with the way our family is managed." Now it's time for the Ottawa Liberals to recognize their plan is leaving Canadians struggling to meet their ends at the end of the month. It's time for them to realize that today's deficits are tomorrow's tax hikes. Where will 4 years of broken promises, sky-high deficits, and Liberal incompetence leave us? With the Prime Minister raising taxes and making life even more expensive for Canadians.
The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, this Black History Month, I'd like to talk about Jean de Dieu Sibairo Rihaniza, a resident of my riding of La Prairie. He left the Republic of Congo in 2004 because of a civil war that was persecuting his community. In 2014, the security of his family was compromised. He left for Canada. His spouse and 2 children settled in Belgium. He quickly became part of Canadian society and worked in the communications field and then in the banking field. He sponsored the coming to Canada of his spouse and children. I'd like to salute his courage and perseverance, who chose to live in a society with the rule of law. As he said, he lost 2 countries but won Canada. I'd like to thank him for having chosen to contribute with so much fervor and humanity to our society, and I wish him great success in obtaining his citizenship. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, it's a great honour to pay tribute to a great Canadian who left us suddenly over this past weekend. And I'm speaking of Mr. Michael Ferguson. This was a great man who devoted himself to public service, and up to the very end of his life, he had a diploma in business administration. He spent 3 decades as either controller or auditor in New Brunswick, and he helped to make the government of that province more transparent. He then came to Ottawa and joined the Auditor General's office as an auditor. He was recognized for his credibility and frankness and his hard work. He always had the higher interests of his country. These were important to him. I'd like to extend my sympathies to his family, friends, and colleagues. He was a model for all Canadians and has left a great model for all Canadians in the future.
Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Speaker, the Prime Minister thinks that Canadians don't care about how the government manages the country's finance, but that's simply not true. Canadians have said that the #1 priority should be to manage Canada's finances and balance the budget. This Prime Minister promised Canadians in the last election that he would balance the budget this year, but he had no intention of keeping his word. The Canadian deficit keeps getting bigger and is forecasted to hit $31 billion this year. Higher deficits today mean program and job cuts, higher taxes, and pension risk tomorrow. These Liberals don't understand the hardship this causes for families. And for the first time, Canadians are just getting by and not getting ahead. These Liberals don't understand how he runs his own finances. The Prime Minister said, "I no longer have dealings with the way our family fortune is managed." Prime Minister's out of touch and doesn't care. We are all paying for his mistakes.
The Honourable Member for Brossard Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, on Saturday, when I learned that Michael Ferguson, the Auditor General of Canada, had passed away, I was seized with a very strong emotion, which I would have normally associated with the loss of a close friend. In fact, 3 years of joint work in the Standing Committee on Public Accounts allowed me to appreciate this man who was so very discreet but very passionate about public service. Working with him was a great lesson in what should be our most important role to ensure Canadians a government that lives up to their expectations with respect for their dignity and hopes. I'm sure that all colleagues who have served on the Public Accounts Committee since 2011 share my profound admiration for Michael Ferguson's exemplary efforts to learn French, for his efforts also to examine government action from the point of view of the citizen, not the program. For me, he will always be a wonderful example of decency and humility. To his family and to all his colleagues, my heartfelt condolences.
Following discussions among representatives of all parties in the House, me. Questions orales, oral questions. Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, over the weekend, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development tweeted that the Premier of Ontario should be whacked, a mobster term for killing someone, which clearly the Parliamentary Secretary would have known. Why hasn't the Prime Minister called for his resignation?
Prime Minister.
I will address the member's question shortly, but first, Michael Ferguson devoted his life to public service, both in his home province of New Brunswick and across the country. We will remember him for his tireless dedication to promote a transparent, open government that is accountable to Canadians. Over
the past 7 years, his work as Auditor General has improved our democracy, guaranteed integrity of our institutions. We are all saddened.
This is to Mr. Ferguson's family, friends, and colleagues.
Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And while we all very much appreciate the Prime Minister's words, there is an opportunity for ministerial statements later on today, and I look forward to hearing the statement at that time. I think this is an issue, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister needs to take very seriously. This parliamentary secretary has shown this kind of behavior before when he had to apologize for trying to bully and intimidate a female Conservative MP, the member from Richmond Centre. The Prime Minister says he has no tolerance for this kind of behavior. So again, why won't the Prime Minister ask for this parliamentary secretary's resignation?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Is well aware the member in question has apologized for his tweet. It is important that we have civil debate in this House and elsewhere when we engage in matters of public disagreements over public policy.
Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the tweet is still up.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister talks about positive politics. He talks about zero tolerance, but we have a parliamentary secretary who has done this before. Now, Mr. Speaker, what kind of example does the parliamentary secretary to families, children, and social development set? And furthermore, what kind of example does the Prime Minister set by continuing to tolerate this type of behavior from that party?
Minister.
As I said, the parliamentary secretary has apologized for his tweet, and I think it's really important that we all remember that there can be strong disagreements over policy, over questions of substance, but we need to remain civil and keep away from the personal accusations and the personal invectives whenever we have political debates.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the best way of restoring confidence of Canadians in politics is by honouring one's commitments. The Prime Minister in 2015 committed to delivering a zero deficit in 2019. That will not be the case. He said he would run small deficits, but we're looking at some $60 billion over the last 3 years. He did not keep his two promises when it comes to public finances. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that earlier or later, at some point, they're going to have to pay that down. What taxes will the Prime Minister be imposing on Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. In 2015, Canadians had a simple choice. The Conservatives who wanted to continue to give benefits to the richest people, and us who had the intention of investing in the middle class and in our communities to create economic growth. Once again, Mr. Speaker, Canadians made the right choice because the economic growth we've seen over the past years, the assistance we've provided to Canadians, to middle-class Canadians, to families, we've lifted many children out of poverty, we've invested. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's crazy to see that the Prime Minister has forgotten his promise in 2015. They were misled by the Prime Minister because they believed the Prime Minister who said small deficits and nothing in 2019, and it's exactly the opposite. If nothing changes, the return to a balanced budget won't take place for years. How much more are Canadians going to have to pay for this? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The first thing we did, Mr. Speaker, was cut taxes for middle-class Canadians. We've invested in the middle class. We know that that creates economic growth for all. The Conservatives don't understand that. They just talk about cuts in order to balance the budget at all costs. Are they going to cut the Canada Child Benefit? Will they cut the over 4,000 projects, infrastructure projects that we're delivering on across the country? Will they cut the GIS for seniors that we increased by $1,000? Mr. Speaker, where are they going to cut in the investments? The Honourable Member for Mosquée-Neigette-Témiscouata-les-Basses. Mr. Speaker, during the last election campaign, the Liberals promised to eliminate subsidies to oil and gas. They also promised to adequately consult Indigenous peoples on projects affecting their territory. It's been a complete failure on both. The federal court has forced the Liberals to go back to rehold consultations with Indigenous peoples, and the PBO showed that they overpaid for the Trans Mountain. How can they talk about eliminating greenhouse gas emissions with this overpayment and adequate consultations? Mr. Speaker, we know on our side of the House that the economy and employment go hand in hand. The Conservatives don't want to do anything for the environment, and the NDP, unfortunately, doesn't know how to grow the economy. We know that investing in our prosperity and in protecting the environment is the solution. In addition, we are phasing out subsidies for fossil fuels. We are honoring our commitments, our targets for 2025. The Honourable Member. Well, the heart of the problem is that when they talk about changes abroad, they put their hand on their heart and they say that they're going to honour it. The first time in Paris, everyone believed them. The second time in Katowice, everyone was a little more cautious. And that's because when they come back home, they do the opposite. They keep the Conservatives' weak targets, and according to the Federal Environment Commissioner, they won't even meet those targets. They buy pipelines. They increase subsidies for oil and gas. They exclude large emitters from the price on carbon. Is that what climate change, fighting climate change, is really all about? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, we're in a situation where we have the Conservatives who don't want to do anything about climate change. They're accusing us of doing too much, and the NDP, who doesn't do anything about protecting jobs and growing the economy, and they accuse us of not doing enough. With the price on carbon, with our ocean protection plan, with investments to help Canadians, to pay additional costs that link it to pollution, we are working on protecting the environment and growing the economy at the same time.
Canadians are increasingly anxious about climate change. Last October, a UN report concluded the planet only has 12 years to make dramatic reductions in greenhouse gas emissions or face a catastrophe. And Canada's Environment Commissioner warned that meeting our Paris commitments, quote, will require actions beyond those currently planned or in place. So Canadians can't wait for this government to get its act together to urgently address climate change. Mr. Speaker, why does the Prime Minister think that sticking to Harper's climate change targets will get the job done?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we put in place a comprehensive pan-Canadian action plan to fight climate change, which includes putting a price on pollution and, yes, bringing in a price on pollution on those Conservative provinces that haven't wanted to move forward to give pollution a cost. But we've also moved forward on eliminating coal-fired power plants, on investing in renewable energy and investing in green solutions and green technologies at the same time as we're creating greater protection for our natural parks. We know there is much more to do, and we have a plan to do just that.
Member for Victoria.
In my riding of Victoria, Mr. Speaker, people are so frustrated by the Liberals' stale talking points and by the gigantic gap between rhetoric and action on the environment. No matter what the Prime Minister says, climate change leaders don't use public dollars to buy pipelines. People are clear. Action is needed now. When will the Prime Minister stop giving fossil fuel subsidies to giant corporations and get serious about climate change?
The Prime Minister.
Speaker, a country that is serious about fighting climate change knows that it takes investments in renewables, investments in innovative solutions, investments in the kinds of things we need to do to prepare for a lower carbon economy in the future. And getting a discount of $20, $30, $50 billion a year because we can't get our oil to markets other than the United States is unacceptable. That's why we're moving forward responsibly to get our oil to new markets while at the same time we fight climate change with all the tools we need. That, Mr. Speaker, is a Liberal approach.
For Abbotsford.
Speaker, the carbon tax cover-up continues. For many Canadians, life is becoming more expensive thanks to the Liberal carbon tax. But of course, our millionaire Prime Minister doesn't get it. Because, as he said, quote, I no longer have dealings with the way our family fortune is managed. Now, how many Canadians have that problem? Now we find out that the carbon tax is going to be 15 times greater than it is today, and Canadians will have to pay more. When will this Prime Minister tell us exactly how much his carbon tax will cost? Will he now answer?
Honourable Minister, the Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, it's disappointing to see that when we're dealing with an issue that's so important to Canadians and citizens around the entire world, the Conservatives put misleading information out there in order to trick Canadians into not taking action on climate change. The fact is, we're putting forward a plan that involves investments in public transit, making our electricity generated 90% renewable by 2030, and yes, putting a price on pollution. But if the honourable member is so concerned with the affordability of life, he'll take pleasure in knowing that our plan is going to reduce emissions and leave Canadian families better off.
The honourable member for Battleford Lloydminster.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the only plan is to tax Canadians till there's no more money in their pockets. Yeah. And we know this Prime Minister has inherited a great family fortune. Canadians pay their own bills. Every dollar counts when they are managing their family finances. They are already paying for this inefficient carbon tax, and now government documents reveal that Liberals have a plan for a 15-fold increase.
Whoa, wow.
Canadians can't afford a $5,000 tax bill a year. Why is the Prime Minister covering up the actual cost of his carbon tax until after the election?
The Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is putting forward figures that have no basis in reality in order to scare Canadians against taking action on climate change. The fact is, we have the answers on what we can do, and that answer includes putting a price on pollution that will bring our emissions down and make life more affordable. It's been 281 days since the Conservative leader said he would put forward a plan. I know it was Groundhog Day this weekend, but it doesn't have to mean there's going to be 6 more weeks without a climate plan.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' carbon tax plan isn't an environmental plan, it's a tax on everything plan. The government's own documents, his own documents, Mr. Speaker, show the carbon tax will cost a family of 4 up to $5,000 a year and expected to go up even higher after the next election. The Prime Minister, who, in his own words, has a family fortune, might understand the impact of an extra $5,000 a year if he actually related to middle-class Canadians and had to manage his own budget. When will he stop making Canadians pay for his mistakes?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I grew up as part of a generation where doing something to protect our environment and fight climate change was informed every day of my life until now. The fact is, Canadians know that climate change is real, and that people like us who've been given this platform actually have a responsibility to do something about it. The fact is, people are actually feeling real practical fallout from the inaction that we've seen over the past number of decades. Mr. Speaker, we're moving forward with a plan that's going to invest in public transit, is going to make electricity 90% generated by renewable resources by 2030, and it's going to put a price on pollution that will see our emissions come down and leave Canadian families financially better off at tax time.
Member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, it's them who are exempting major emitters and them who are dumping sewage into our rivers and oceans. And this Prime Minister who wants to phase out the oil sands, and his plan is working. Meanwhile, Albertans are out of work and struggling to get by. Now the Liberal carbon tax is driving up the price of everything. This Prime Minister doesn't understand the impact of this tax is having because he inherited a large family fortune. When will this Prime Minister stop making Canadians pay for his mistakes?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservative strategy seems to be to mislead Canadians in order to avoid taking action on climate change. The fact is, we know that climate change is a real threat. We have an opportunity and an obligation not just to do something about it, but to do the most effective things that we know how. We talked to leading experts, and in fact, last year's Nobel Prize winner in economics has discovered that the best thing we can do to reduce emissions is put a price on pollution that makes life more affordable for Canadians. I'm disappointed that the honourable member throws rhetoric out there and makes personal attacks instead of bringing a single idea to the table. If he finally comes up with one, I'm all ears.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Well, it's the Prime Minister's own words. He said, and I quote, "I no longer have dealings with the way our family fortune is managed." But because he's never had to balance a household budget, he thinks budgets balance themselves. He's not worried about costs because he just makes others pay for his mistakes. His deficits are now out of control and breaking his own promises. And sooner or later, if he's allowed to continue, they will lead to higher taxes. The question is, how much will his tax plan cost Canadians, and who will have to pay?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
is that the member from Carleton can find out exactly what our tax plan is. We already introduced it back in 2016. We reduced taxes on middle-class Canadians. So what that means 30,000 people in his riding, in the riding of Carleton, have lower taxes. We also introduced an increase in the Canada Child Benefit, which means that 16,000 children in his riding are better off, $4 million better off in total. That is what our tax plan is. It's helping middle-class Canadians.
Member for Carleton.
Pretty rich for someone with $1 billion family business or a family fortune to claim that people are better off because they pay higher taxes by losing their children's fitness tax credit, by losing their transit tax credit, by losing tax credits for tuition and for textbooks. All of these middle-class Canadians are already paying more, but they know that the out-of-control runaway Liberal deficits will make it even worse after the election. So will they come clean? How much will they raise taxes, and who will have to pay?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
I want to tell you what real challenge looks like. It looks like October 22nd for the member from Carleton when he's out trying to find a job, talking to employers about how he can do half an analysis and get to the wrong answer. That's what he continues to do. Half an analysis, the wrong answer. The whole analysis, what that tells you is that middle-class Canadians, they are better off. $2,000 better off this year than in 2015. That's the middle-class tax plan for the Liberals.
That's enough. Order. The honourable member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, China arbitrarily detained Canadian citizens for political purposes, and the Liberals said business as usual. A former SNC-Lavalin executive pleaded guilty to breaking political financing laws in what's been called the biggest fraud case in the country, but they continue to get huge federal contracts. It seems that whenever there's a buck to be made, the Liberals' moral compass breaks down, Mr. Speaker. SNC-Lavalin should be suspended from bidding on federal government contracts until Canadians have all the details of this fraud. So will the Liberals order the suspension, or do they have a price for every principle?
Hear, hear. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services.
Mr. Speaker, SNC-Lavalin has a long history, including in my own province of Quebec. It supports tens of thousands of Canadian men and women. The jobs on the projects it works on support hundreds of thousands of Canadian men and women. And what I want to know is why this member is talking down Canadian jobs. That's what Canadians want to know. What I can also assure the member is that we have an accountability regime that is among the most stringent in the world. We will continue to enforce that. Canadian companies will have the highest degree of ethical behavior.
Right on. The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, there are no principles. For 3 years now, the Minister of Revenue has been on the job. But since then, there have been no charges, no convictions linked to international tax evasion. People who pay their taxes are starting to find the Liberals pretty liberal with the richest 1%. Can we blame them? Look at the Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, Bahama Leaks. 3 years, 3 scandals, no results. What's it going to take for the minister to do her job and deal with the real people taking advantage of the tax system, and for her to come up with a plan that actually works? The Honourable Minister. Allow me to disagree with my colleague from the NDP. Contrary to the Conservatives, contrary to the NDP, we have made tax evasion a priority for our government when it comes to foreign tax evasion. Under our leadership, the agency has done many more investigations in the past 3 years than the Conservatives did in their 10 years in power. We are currently investigating some 50 cases linked to tax evasion, and we are going to
Mr. Speaker, perhaps this millionaire Prime Minister doesn't realize that taxpayers aren't his personal ATM, and that ATM doesn't stand for automatic trust fund machine. This Prime Minister has left Canadians with only debts and deficits with no signs of a balanced budget. Canadians know that the extravagance of the Liberals will soon become the burden of middle-class families as they continue to raise taxes to pay for Liberal mistakes. Dollars don't fall from heaven. They have to be earned on earth. Will the Prime Minister come clean and tell Canadians the truth about his plan to raise taxes?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, even after the previous Conservative government left an additional $150 billion worth of debt, we still move forward to make investments in Canada. That's what we knew we needed to do, investments in middle-class Canadians. We lowered their taxes. That has been our plan from day one. Increasing Canada child benefits means they're better off today, our economy is better off, low unemployment, higher growth. That is the Liberal plan for success in our country, and we're going to stick through it, not only now, but after the next election.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, their plan isn't working. Now, when you incur debt, you have to plan to pay it back. A deficit now means taxes, higher taxes tomorrow for us, our children, and our grandchildren, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister will have to increase taxes to pay for his irresponsible, out-of-control spending. The government must, once and for all, tell Canadians the truth. When will the Prime Minister reveal his plan to raise taxes? Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Finance. Our plan is very clear. We started by cutting taxes for the middle class, and we enhanced the CCB. This is an approach that works. It works for the middle class, and at the same time, it works for our economy, which is growing. We have the lowest unemployment rate in 40 years. Our plan is working. We will continue with our plan.
Mr. Speaker, when negotiating NAFTA, the Prime Minister made the mistake of giving in to all of Donald Trump's demands. Canadians are now feeling the effects of his mistakes. The Government of Ontario and Quebec have both sent letters to the Prime Minister urging him to do something to remove the harmful tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. When will these tariffs be lifted?
Secretary for Canada-U.S. Relations.
Mr. Speaker, when the U.S. imposed their illegal tariffs on our steel and aluminum, we acted quickly. We've already provided $624 million support to companies and workers, and we quickly imposed counter tariffs perfectly matched to protect our workers. Meanwhile, Doug Ford's Conservatives are calling for us to unilaterally surrender to the Americans by unconditionally removing our tariffs. Mr. Speaker, while our government is fighting for our workers, all the Conservatives can do is surrender.
Hear, hear.
For Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, the problem here isn't Doug Ford. It's the Prime Minister's mistake of giving in to Donald Trump. What's important here is the Canadian economy and Canadian jobs. Manufacturers across Canada can't afford to continue to pay for the Prime Minister's mistakes. What is the plan to get these tariffs lifted? Canadians can't wait forever.
The Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, we are standing up for Canadian companies facing the illegal U.S. tariffs. Our tariffs of $16.6 billion worth of U.S. imports are working. Just last week, senior Republicans called on the U.S. administration to lift the U.S. tariffs because of the impact of our retaliatory measures. Meanwhile, the Conservatives want to surrender. Instead of trying to score cheap political points on the back of our workers, Doug Ford and his Conservative friends on the other side of the aisle should join us and stand up for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, last night Unifor ran an ad intended to continue the fight for thousands of Canadian GM workers who will lose their jobs in Oshawa. Unlike this Prime Minister, who is sitting this one out, workers are fighting for their jobs and community. Conservatives gave GM billions in incentives without a guarantee to protect jobs in Canada. Now Liberals leave workers left stranded without a paycheck. It's about choices. Why won't the Liberals show some courage and stand up for Canadian workers?
Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we are standing up for Canadian auto workers. When I went to the Detroit Auto Show, I met with Mary Barra and was very clear and highlighted the fact that they're making a mistake by leaving Oshawa. We won't make that same mistake. We'll continue to defend the automotive sector. We'll continue to defend the automotive workers. We've seen investments of $5.6 billion since we formed government in 2015 because we have policies and programs to support this critically important sector. We'll continue to fight for our auto workers.
Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, after 3 years of running deficits, the Liberals are finally now getting into infrastructure mode. Well, it's high time they started taking care of our infrastructure. They should have made quick investments early on, because cities and smaller municipalities can't wait any longer. But the Liberals preferred to set up an infrastructure bank to enrich their friends. And now they're touring the country in anticipation of the elections. Do they realize that once again it's ordinary Canadians who will have to pay for their empty and unfulfilled infrastructure promises? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, in 2015, we promised Canadians that we would make investments that would change the future in infrastructure and grow our economy. Whether it's schools, public transit, housing, culture, recreation, water treatment, and so on, we are investing in these infrastructure projects that will make the daily lives of Canadians easier. Our government has made unprecedented investments to build a 21st century Canada.
For Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, today, February 4th, is a World Cancer Day. Almost everyone in this House, and indeed all Canadians, has a friend or family member whose life has been touched by cancer. It continues to be the leading cause of death in Canada, and almost half of all Canadians will develop it in their lifetime. We all know the devastation that a diagnosis can have on a family. I would like to ask the Minister of Health what our government has been doing to fight cancer.
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the member from Brampton South for her important question, but also her tremendous work on the Health Committee. As the Health Minister, I've certainly heard heartbreaking stories about people affected by cancer. And that's why this government has invested over $1.7 billion over the past 10 years in cancer research. Also, we're promoting healthy eating and physical activity, and last year unveiled new tobacco rules that the Canadian Cancer Society actually called the best in the world. While it might be tough, I know that together we will be able to one day beat cancer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, more than 125,000 oil and gas workers have lost their jobs under these Liberals. The Prime Minister vetoed Northern Gateway with no consultation. He killed Energy East with red tape. He overpaid for Trans Mountain, and every delay costs taxpayers more. His mistakes have caused the crisis in the energy sector and recently threatened the jobs of over 2,000 CNRL workers in Northeast Alberta. Now Imperial is cutting rail shipments and considering cancelling a new oil sands project. Will the Liberals stop? There are no more pipelines, Bill C-69.
Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the purpose of Bill C-69 is to fix a broken system that was implemented by the previous government in 2012 that took away the ability of the Indigenous peoples to participate in a meaningful way. It took the ability of Canadians to participate in the regulatory process. It took the ability way for us to protect our environment, the waterways, fish, and fish habitat. We are fixing a system that will allow us to move forward on large energy infrastructure projects in a way that makes sense for Canadians.
Order. The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
But 4 major new pipelines were built under Conservatives, and the reality is not a single new inch has been built under these Liberals. And most Canadians agree the lack of pipelines is a national crisis and that the Liberals are to blame. The Prime Minister said he wants to phase out the oil sands, and he's doing it. Last week, StatsCan said Canada's economy shrank in November because of low energy production, along with losses in construction, manufacturing, and finance. Hundreds of thousands of jobs are at risk. But you know what? The Prime Minister has a family fortune made mostly from oil and gas, so he really doesn't care. Why is the Prime Minister forcing Canadians to pay with their jobs for his mistakes?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Understand that Canada's natural resources have been a source of prosperity for all Canadians and thousands of jobs that have been created in that sector. The previous government failed to diversify our export markets. 99% of the oil from Alberta goes to the United States. That was the case in 2006, and that was the case in 2015. We are moving forward on the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion in the right way to ensure that we're able to expand our markets. And the pipelines the honourable member cites, none of those allows us to get our resources to non-US markets.
Good job. Député de Charlebourg.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Order. Mr. Speaker, the Canada Border Services Agency has had to reassign up to 550 employees to cover the illegal migration crisis. And now the PBO has estimated that the cost to taxpayers of this crisis will exceed $1 billion by the end of next year. That doesn't include additional costs to the provinces and municipalities who are still awaiting compensation. Will the minister appear before the committee to explain the consequences of his mismanagement and that of the Prime Minister? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Our government's absolute priority is the safety of Canadians. When it comes to asylum seekers, we are working closely with the RCMP and CBSA to ensure that things happen properly, and we're making sure that they have the resources when they need them. In fact, it was said that the deployment of staff to deal with irregular migrants has no impact on the daily operations of the agency. So contrary to, or unlike the previous government, we are taking action to protect Canadians. We're investing in our security and will continue to do so.
No impact on the operations of the agency. That's in spite of these stories from recent weeks. An individual is deemed a national security concern, but still granted permanent residency. An illegal border crosser was able to enter Canada in spite of admitting to an extensive criminal record.
Really?
But no discernible impact. Will the minister appear before a parliamentary committee to be held accountable for Canada's immigration screening processes?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, the reality is that we will never compromise in the safety and security of Canadians. We are working closely with the Canadian Border Securities Agency and the RCMP to ensure that that's actually the case. Wherever we need to put resources in place, that's where we're going to put them. And at no time was there any compromisation of the security of Canadians. And I want to quote the CBSA on this. The deployment of staff from across the country to support the processing of irregular migration has had no impact on the agency's daily operations. They may not believe the CBSA. We do, and we support them.
Yes, sir.
Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Online application process for the Parents-Grandparents Sponsorship Program was a farce. Grace had tried to apply for 4 years, but the link didn't even show up for her on the IRCC website, despite upgrading her internet. Una felt cheated, as no one told her about the game rules. She opened the form at 9:01. It says she had 10 minutes to complete it. She finished it in 3. Then she went over to make sure everything was correct. But after 7 minutes, she was kicked out. But later she heard you only have to fill out the name and the contact information to be accepted. How is this a fair process? And what will it take for the minister to do the right thing and eliminate the cap?
Minister of Immigration.
That we inherited a backlog of 167,000 people in the Parents and Grandparents program. Under the Conservative leadership, they had families waiting 8 years to be reunited with their parents and grandparents. We've brought that process down to less than 2 years. Wow. We've quadrupled the number from 5,000 to 20,000 spots so that more parents and grandparents can be reunited with their family. And we've put in place a fair first-come, first-served process. We'll continue to do better, and we've already improved the system in many ways, and we are responsible.
Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, since the Liberals became government, they've left $372 million unspent at Veterans Affairs, even as service levels deteriorate. Last November, Parliament unanimously supported the NDP motion to end lapse spending and to ensure that all lapse spending goes to veterans so they get the services they need and deserve. I'd like to congratulate the new minister in her new role, but my question is simple. Will she honour Parliament's unanimous vote to end lapse spending at Veterans Affairs and ensure money budgeted for veterans is actually spent on veterans?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Thank you for the question, and I would like to commend the honourable member across the way for joining me in the chamber this morning as we conducted the closing ceremonies. To the member's question, as the member knows, our benefits are demand-driven, so no matter how many veterans come forward, when eligible, they will receive their benefits. These are based on estimates, and this process guarantees that whether a veteran comes forward this year, next year, or beyond, they will receive benefits.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Côte de Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans-Charlevoix. The Liberals' true feelings about Quebec are obvious. Despite their hypocritical smiles, they aren't listening to Quebecers or their needs at all. The Prime Minister is refusing to acknowledge the consensus in Quebec about having a single tax return form. Instead, he's inventing a ridiculous story suggesting that Quebecers might engage in tax evasion. That's only one step away from calling us thieves. Why can't they respond to this legitimate request from Quebecers? Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Recently, I was in Shawinigan with my colleague, the Minister of Infrastructure, as well as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services, to announce the construction of a new building that will host more than 1,300 employees in the Mauricie region. I had a very clear message for those employees and their families, Mr. Speaker. We are investing in Shawinigan because it's important and because we believe in their future. Unlike the Conservatives, we believe in the importance of investing, creating, and maintaining high-quality jobs in rural Quebec. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, having a single tax return means cutting the length of the form, not the number of workers. Nobody's going to lose their job in Shawinigan or Jonquière or anywhere else, Mr. Speaker. The minister's response is simply pathetic. For the Liberals, it's just the same old show. They say that they're open to Quebec's ideas, but when they get problematic, it's like, oh, well, we'll have to scare them off with some false argument. Can the minister do something positive and tell Quebec yes when it comes to having a single tax return form? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I've been all around the Magdalen Islands and those regions, and I remember when the Harper government set up the EI reform in 2011. People in Eastern Quebec were terrorized by those changes. So the Harper Conservatives and the Conservatives of today are exactly the same. Now, we're going to be making new promises for the future, and I would encourage the Conservatives during the next election campaign to stop cutting. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the minister is continuing to be ridiculous in response to a very legitimate request from the National Assembly and from most Quebecers. Instead of using her position to make life easier for Quebecers, she's cutting all of Quebec's requests. The request for the single tax form, for the Obélix, for the sports tax credit. This joke has gone on long enough, Mr. Speaker. Will the minister stop treating Quebecers like a threat and finally allow them to have a single tax return form? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, if the Conservatives had been in power and had done their homework, maybe they would better understand how things happen with the National Revenue Agency. The federal government, including 9 provinces and 3 territories, harmonized their tax return form, unlike Quebec, which has a different definition of what constitutes income. So do we ask our provinces and territories to align with Quebec, or do we try to get Quebec to align with the rest of Canada, Mr. Speaker? We will continue to work with our colleagues. The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, one of the first measures that our government took when we were elected was to start an investigation into murdered and missing Indigenous women.
We highlighted the need to fund commemoration activities to help honor the lives and legacies of Indigenous women and girls and the LGBTQ2S individuals. La ministre des Femmes et de l'Égalité des Sexes.
Can the Minister on the Status of Women inform the House of what our government is doing to meet the inquiry's recommendations.
I'd like to thank my colleague for her strong advocacy on the behalf of the people of Saint Laurent and her good work on the Status of Women Committee. Mr. Speaker, we've heard from families and survivors across the country for the need for a commemoration fund to honor the lives and the legacies of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, including LGBTQ2S individuals. We've delivered with a commemoration fund worth over $10 million because we know when we come together to remember, to ensure that the stories of the missing and murdered find a dignified place in our stories, we all move forward on this path to
Honourable Member for Banff Airdrie.
Mr. Speaker, this government says one thing and does another. Promises a balanced budget by 2019 and then deficits for decades to come. Promises to make life more affordable for Canadians and then increase the cost of everything with the unfair carbon tax. Say that the environment and the economy go hand in hand, and then refuse to negotiate fairly and honestly with the Sunshine Village ski area. So can the Minister of Tourism explain how threatening to kick a family business off the land that they've used for 38 years protects our environment or grows tourism or our economy?
Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Lesson from the Harper Conservative that decided to cut in the tourism sector by making sure to cut into Canada's marketing to international visitors, and also basically by letting down the 1.8 million Canadians that work in the sector. On this side of the House, we believe in the 1.8 million Canadians that work in the tourism sector. We've reinvested $100 million to promote Canada's tourism brand to the world, and we will present a good tourism strategy to make sure that Canada is basically the destination in the world to come, because we all know.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, for 3 years, the Liberals have promised reforms to protect our culture against Netflix and companies' dumping of American content. 10 days ago, Quebec media artists met in Montreal to send a clear message. Just do it. The Liberals always say, if you profit from our culture, you have to contribute to our culture, no exceptions. Well, then do something. Ottawa already has all the tools that it needs. All experts agreed on that point. So everyone wants the minister to adopt interim measures before the elections. Will he act, or will he let our culture die by 1,000 cuts? The Honourable Minister of Heritage. Mr. Speaker, it's always the same question. It's the same old recording. I would ask the Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert not to shout in the House. Occasionally we hear things that we don't like from the other side, but we all need to remain calm and respectful and try to wait one's turn. The Honourable Minister. Well, currently, I've been going across Canada, through different regions, in Quebec, for example, and what I've heard is that people are proud of the investments we're making in Telefilm Canada and in other media. After 10 years of cuts under the Conservative government, we're finally bringing our creators and cultures back to the centre of everything that we do. And I'm saying this again, Mr. Speaker, because I think it's important that people know.
For Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, seniors are an important part of families, communities, and workplaces in my riding of Surrey Centre and across this country. They help grow Canada's economy and bring valuable knowledge and experience. Just last week in my riding of Surrey Centre, we announced $3.5 million for the investment in a new AgeWell National Innovation Hub Digital Health Circle. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development please tell this House how this investment will help benefit seniors in my riding of Surrey Centre and across British Columbia?
Great. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Member of Parliament for Surrey Centre for announcing this next step forward in our innovation and skills plan, and particularly for all his hard work and advocacy as well, Mr. Speaker. Our government is committed to the health and vitality of Canadian seniors by helping commercialize preventative health technologies The digital health circle will create jobs and reduce healthcare costs. This is an investment in the independence, dignity, and quality of life of British Columbia seniors, Mr. Speaker, and will continue to invest in British Columbia and in seniors.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Etchemin-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, workers at the Davie shipyard protested against the Prime Minister's inaction in Quebec City. As usual, he didn't listen, and the workers went home empty-handed. The Prime Minister also ignored the House Committee's recommendation to take action for the Navy. We know that this Prime Minister isn't used to having to pay the bills, but workers do. The naval strategy is languishing under the Liberals. Delays are being extended, so when will we finally get the Obélix at the Davie shipyard? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we've been clear about our naval shipbuilding strategy. The Obélix is not something we're envisaging at the moment, but I would ask my honourable member why he didn't stand up for workers at the Davie shipyard when they ruled out that shipyard under their government. On this side of the House, we are trying to offer opportunities to the Davie shipyard. That member and that government did nothing for the shipyard. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, after many years of austerity, Quebec has finally balanced its budget. Despite the fact that they're responsible for health, education, daycare, and much more. But while Quebec was tightening its belt, money was flowing freely out of Ottawa. $19 billion in deficit. And what is it for? Dirty oil. And rail cars that bring their oil to Quebec. Will the government start using the money of Quebecers for Quebecers' needs? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the tax cut for the middle class, the enhancement of the CCB, that's for all Canadians, including Quebecers. It's very important to improve the living standards of the middle class all across Canada. That's been our approach, and it is working. We can see that we have the lowest unemployment rate in 40 years, particularly in Quebec. Our approach is working. Our economy is growing. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, $19 billion in deficit for oil. For a government that loves to boast about how green it is, that's a real joke. And there's nothing there to compensate our farmers, nothing to fight the use of tax havens, no compensation for welcoming migrants, and a decreased federal health transfer. How can the government explain to Quebecers that it's spending their money recklessly without taking their priorities into account at all? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we will continue with our approach. It's clear that this is the best way to improve living standards for the middle class all across the country, and particularly in Quebec. We can see that the economy is growing. There's very low unemployment. That means that our approach and the Quebec government's approach are working together, and I think that's very good for Quebec.
Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, when asked last week about Greyhound pulling out of BC, the Minister of Transport said, quote, "We are working with the provinces. We will be there if they request us to help them on a cost-sharing basis," end quote. Mr. Speaker, the Saskatchewan Transportation Company has been shut down and sold off. Is the federal government also offering to share the cost of restoring needed bus service in our province?
Minister of Transport.
Speaker, as we said last November, we are there to help the provinces on a cost-sharing basis for those provinces that are willing to invest in providing some of the routes that have been abandoned by Greyhound and that have not been taken up by other companies in the private sector. And that applies to all the 4 Western provinces. We are there because we realize that certain people depend on the bus service. They have no other alternative. And we'll be there.
The
Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent is rising on a point of order. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Point of order. I think you'll find there's unanimous consent to table the following document. The Liberals' election platform from 2015, where it claims there will be a zero deficit in 2019. Is there unanimous consent? No, there is not unanimous consent.
The
Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis is rising on a point of order. During question period, I referenced the Defence Committee, which named 14 reasons that the Liberals should now grant the Obelix to the Davy shipyard, and I would request unanimous consent in the spirit of transparency to table this important report. It's important to taxpayers, to the Navy, and to Davy workers. Is there unanimous consent? No.
The Honourable Member for Carleton is rising on a point of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, it's important for us to keep our promises in both official languages, so that I think you'll find unanimous consent to allow me to table in this House of Commons the Liberal Party platform showing the budget will be balanced in the year 2019, that is this year. Thank you.
Consent.